candidate, Andrew Yang.
Hello, thank you, Seattle. Oh my gosh. Hey guys, thank you all so much for being here. It's incredible. I love Seattle. I love the Yang Gang, and thus I doubly love the Seattle Yang Gang. How many of you all were at the rally last month here in Seattle? So fun. That was such a blast. I can't promise bald eagles descending from the heavens every time, but I'm so glad we could gather in a smaller group like this one. I want to have a chance to meet with each of you and get a sense of what brought you here all today, and have a chance to take some questions from you all. So since most of you attended the rally last time, and all of you have something called YouTube, you get a sense of my stump speech, the values of the campaign. I get a sense that most of you are pretty deep into that. So I'd actually like to give you guys just an inside perspective on where the campaign is and where we're going. And you all are what I call early adopters. It's like my favorite kind of person. Because early adopters are the thing that see it and say like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the future, and then you get onto it. Just like the Riveter here. Like the Riveter is the future, and there are so many people that are early adopters. So let's give the Riveter a round of applause for the unedited. I love the mission so much. I'm tremendous. So you all are early adopters to this campaign, the vision. And how many of you had this experience where you've been bugging people about Andrew Yang, which I appreciate very, very greatly, and then had someone initially be unresponsive and then double back and come back to you some days or weeks later being like, oh yeah, I just saw this thing, like that would make sense. How many of you had that experience? Yeah. Well, thank you. That's the early adopter experience. That's what happens. But then there's this great feeling of gratification and warmth when people get on board after you. But it never happens without people like you blazing a trail and making it happen. So the inside track of the campaign is this. You all know I'm one of the 13 or so candidates to qualify for the Democratic primary debates in June and July. So we're here to make it happen. And so this month is about raising our national profile. I'm on the West Coast because I'm going to do Bill Maher tomorrow. So that'll be exciting. How many HBO subscribers here? Let's see. Game of Thrones, disappointing. So Bill Maher and Dave Rubin tomorrow, and then Pod Save America on Tuesday. And then the Daily Show's reached out. I'm getting my first magazine cover on something called the Washington Post magazine. So that'll be a lot of fun. So I'm just imagining who subscribes to the paper copy of the Washington Post. And so I'm imagining it's all of the people who live in the DC area. And so I want you all to share in this experience where they get their Sunday paper, and then there's the magazine, and then there's like a picture of this guy at the cover, and they'll be like, what is going on? It's very exciting. So the profiles were NBC, New York Times, like the debate is going to be this massive opportunity, and the run up to the debate. And then the ratings of the debate, according to the last cycle, will be between 11 million and 24 million Americans. So unlike you all, the vast majority of Americans have no idea who's running for president in 2020. It's one reason why the field looks the way it does, because they're glomming onto the names they recognize. Joe Biden. But anyone who's keeping track knows that this field is going to be very, very fluid. Who was leading the Republican field this time in 2015?
Rubio, right?
Jeb.
Jeb with an exclamation point. That's right. It was Jeb Bush. And when Donald Trump first declared, came down the escalator, or up the escalator, I can't remember. But he came down the escalator, boo, I know. It's not like everyone was like, oh, this guy's going to be president. I think his first polling numbers were like 1% to 2%. And then the field rearranged itself over that summer. So the same thing's going to happen in the Democratic field. And most people who are looking at it know this. So this is what June's about. June's about the debates. It's about this tremendous opportunity to introduce myself to this 11 to 24 million Americans who will really just be tuning in for the first time. And so the joke I tell is like they're going to tune in and they're going to say, who is the Asian man standing next to Joe Biden? They're then going to Google Asian man standing next to Joe Biden. And they're gonna say Andrew Yang, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I heard something about this. This guy wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. That's a real thing? Like, we can actually do this? And so then the Yang Gang's gonna grow and grow through the end of June. Now, the DNC just came out with the qualifications, not for the summer debates, but for the fall debates. How many of you saw this, the qualifications for the fall debates? So this is September, October. And where it's like they prepared the rules for us. It's like the DNC secretly Yang Gang. Because the thresholds, there are two of them. Number one, they've doubled the individual donor number from 65,000 to 130,000. How many donors do we have right now? 114,000 or so. Do you guys think we can get to 130,000 in the next 3 months? Ah, seriously. The people in this room could get us to 130,000. I mean, it's true, we could.
We've already donated.
Yes, you already donated, but you all have a few friends. You'd be like, hey, if it was the difference maker, we could get to 130,000 like that. So that's threshold number one. We're going to clear that very easily in the time we have. And then number two is I need to be polling at 2% in 4 polls between June 28th and Labor Day. Now, I'm already polling at between 1% and 3% in different states and different polls right now. And this is before all this press, before the debates. And so all I have to do is introduce myself to the American people on June 26th. And then we're going to easily clear this 2% threshold. And then I will be not just in the debates in the summer, but I'll be one of the top approximately 10 candidates, 10 to 12, that makes it into the fall debates. What do you think about that, Seattle? Yeah, and you know, as the field shrinks, it's going to get more and more interesting because our message is so distinct from the other candidates. And so you put me on that main debate stage, and then the 1%, 2, 4, 5% just going to keep on climbing. We're going to be able to grow and grow, not just through the summer, but through the fall. And it's all thanks to you all just doing the work, being early adopters and champions, and helping this campaign catch on like wildfire here in Seattle and around the country. So thank you so much for that. But you can see this path, I've been stunned at how achievable this all is. Really, it's like this 130,000 donor threshold. It's going to be very difficult for, let's say, 50 to 60% of the campaigns to achieve. But we're going to be there like that. It's incredible. And the mainstream press is catching on more and more to the fact that we have more genuine, popular, grassroots support and appeal than most of the other candidates. And we are already drawing off not just progressives and Democrats, which I suspect resembles most of you. I'm getting that feeling. But we are peeling off also Trump supporters, libertarians, conservatives, independents. And the fascinating thing about the Democratic picture right now is that it's almost circular. What's the number one question in terms of who they want as a nominee? Who can beat Donald Trump? And so they're saying, like, okay, who can beat Donald Trump? This person, Joe Biden. And so, why am I for Joe Biden? Because he can beat Donald Trump. You know, and so there's like this circularity. It's really quite interesting. And so as people catch on to the fact that the candidate who's drawing off Trump supporters and libertarians and independents and conservatives can beat Donald Trump, then we become the main alternative very, very quickly. So this is the path ahead. There's some really exciting things going on the campaign trail. So one thing I'll let you guys know too, I want to see what you think of this because we're still tinkering with it. I'm going to give a universal basic income of $1,000 a month away on Twitter. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, hey, whoever retweets this, one of you is just going to get $1,000 a month. And apparently there are no rules against that. Do you think people are going to retweet that? Yeah. Do you think we're going to get a news cycle out of that? Yeah, and then I can already see the CNN talking heads being like, Andrew Yang, the internet candidate, is giving away $12,000 on Twitter to an American. Is he allowed to do that, Tom? It's like, well, we looked it up and yes, he is. So these are the kind of things that we get to innovate on as a candidate, where we get to break new ground, we get to do things that other candidates aren't doing, and it's a lot of fun. Like the team is comprised of very young, scrappy, enterprising types. So I want to give them a call out right now, and you might have interacted with some of them. So Zach, my campaign manager. Let's give him the National Director of Engagement. And then you can tell just by looking at him, he has something to do with money. Dylan of Finance. So it gives you a sense of some of the people working on the team, where we are young, scrappy, we're very Riveter-ish, I would say. And we're trying to do things in a way that breaks new ground and shows people that does not need to be politics as usual. And the campaign grows and grows every day because of that. So I would absolutely love to take individual questions from some of you to take advantage of the fact that we're here together. I also do want to say that we have a goal for the end of Q2, right after when the debates take place. We're trying to raise $3.5 million by June 30th. And right now we're on track for something like between 2 and 2.5 before all of this press and before the debates and everything else. So we have a ways to go, but we can get there, and we'd absolutely love your help in making that happen. Would love to take some questions from each of you. Just say who you are. Oh, wow, Carl even has a mic.
I'm picking. Oh, wow, I thought you were going to call him and I would walk over. You've got so much power.
How's it going? Michael Longoria, great to meet you. I've been following you for a while. Starting off with a pretty niche question. Could you describe your plan for achieving digital asset regulation in the U.S.?
How many other crypto people are there here? So that's a crypto question, right, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been meeting with the cryptocurrency community, and what they want is exactly what Michael wants, which is just some transparent set of regulations where it's not a state-by-state hodgepodge. And so that's what I promised the folks in the cryptocurrency community is like, look, I get it, you're innovators, you just want to know what the rules are. You want to know whether there's a particular agency that's going to treat you as like a security or a commodity, or like what the rules are around what the token properties have to be. So as president, what I've pledged is we're going to set the rules, we're going to let you know what they are, we're going to let you know what the tax treatment is, and then we're going to set you loose. And I think that blockchain has immense potential in its ability to help transform many of our administrative and cumbersome processes, including eventually, perhaps, even our ability to vote digitally. Now that's a very ambitious thing, and we need to get there, but we know right now that our voting rates are low for a variety of reasons. But one of the reasons is that it's a very cumbersome process. And so if you could vote via your smartphone in a way that's secure and transparent, and you had high confidence in that, like, do you think we could get the voting rate up significantly? Like, yeah, it'd be much, much higher. And the blockchain can help with that. So after 8 years in the White House, my goal is to be leaving on a high where people can actually vote on their phones. And if we get to that point, then that would transform many, many policies.
Would you see the social credits on blockchain also?
Yeah, that would be the goal.
Thanks.
It's a very Seattle thing, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Hi. So of the 105 or so policies on your website, one thing that I didn't see was your views on the NSA or mass surveillance. So I'm curious what they are, about your views on the NSA, your views on mass surveillance, on the Patriot Act, on pardoning Snowden, etc.
Yeah, it's such a nuanced issue. So I think that the move after 9/11 was very, very extreme in the direction of just mass surveillance of civilians without our consent. And that stuff, to me, went way too far. So at the same time, during this time period, I talked to an AI scientist who talked about how we're reaching a point now where there's going to be like much higher potential destructiveness for bad actors. And that's just going to be something that is a result of advancing technology in various ways. And so he actually put it in my mind, it's like, because my natural instinct is to say, Big Brother, not good, mass surveillance, bad, whistleblowers, good, coming down on whistleblowers, bad, like that's my natural instinct. Now I think that there are actually going to be at least some situations around, for example, biotechnology threats and some other things, where this scientist was telling me, look, you want to actually constrain the ability to like work with certain materials like to certain places, and there might be no realistic way to do that aside from either some sort of concentration of labs in particular places or some sort of surveillance. So as you can tell, my instincts are to say, look, We've gone way, way too far in a particular direction, but I do think there are going to be isolated instances where the government's going to have to play some sort of heavy role for the public good.
Hi, Darnell. Big fan. I've been watching you a lot. I've seen recent videos with you on Fox News. I'm glad that you got your voice back and you're feeling much better.
Oh, thanks for the concern, man.
Yeah, I'm really happy about that. Your flagship proposal is
It was the Russians.
It was right.
Came in. They gave me some kind of laryngitis pill.
Yeah, but you recovered, man. You beat them back. So your flagship proposal is universal basic income, and the number one rebuttal to that on Fox News is that it's welfare. And I understand that you're rebranding it as a freedom dividend and all that stuff, which is good, but like, I think the better action would be to say that it is in the Constitution for the government to provide the welfare of the common people. And so that it shouldn't be an insult to say that it is welfare. That is the government's job to make sure that we're all taken care of.
You know, you're the second person today to come up and tell me that welfare is in the Constitution and we just need to retake the word welfare. So I'm going to take that to heart. Thank you, man. Thanks, Darnell. And thanks for noticing I go on Fox and that, you know, it's like, that's all I want to.
A lot of the Democratic field doesn't want to use that, which makes no sense. The only way you can challenge their
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Darnell.
Hi, I was wondering, with the freedom dividend, you've mentioned that one of the requirements would be that the recipients be 18 and up. And I was wondering, you've used the word citizen a lot, and I was wondering if that is only for like legal citizens or if it would also be for legal permanent residents or other types of visa holders.
Thank you for the question. So I think we need to rationalize the process of becoming a citizen, particularly for people who are here and want to become citizens. I do think it's necessary to have a threshold of citizenship in order to receive the freedom dividend, but I want to vastly simplify and speed up the process through which someone can become a citizen if they're a legal resident, if they have a green card. If you want to be a citizen and we can tell you're awesome, like we should make that as easy as possible. Because I have many friends who are stuck in this weird limbo where they're like, and our process is so weird and bizarre. It's like the lotteries and like all of like the machinations. A lot of it is stuck in my mind in like zero-sum thinking, where it's like somehow if I hire this person, I'm going to hire one fewer American. It's so dumb. Like it has nothing to do. It's like, you know, I'm going to hire this person. I'm going to hire this person. It has no impact on like whether this American gets hired by the company or a different company. So I do think you need to have a threshold of citizenship, but I want to make it vastly easier, faster, more efficient for anyone who wants to become a citizen to be able to do so and not have the crazy processes and the crazy waiting periods. You all probably know I'm the son of immigrants myself. I think that immigrants make our country stronger, more dynamic economically and culturally. I'm the opposite of Donald Trump. You all know opposite of Donald Trump. Asian man who likes math, that's right. But not only Donald Trump, in terms of immigrants, he wants to build a wall and keep people out. I want to give immigrants a hug. I want to let people know, it's like if you come to this country and you work hard, your son or daughter can become president of the United States. Yes.
Hi, I have a lot of friends and family from back in Texas that are very conservative, and they like you, they've seen you on Fox, but they're terrified of just the word socialism. How would you explain to them how what you're doing is different from Venezuela, or to ease their fears and make it more appealing?
Oh, thanks. Did I come out of the camera? Did I disappear? Well, thank you for talking to your family in Texas. So what I say is that this is capitalism where income doesn't start at zero, and that markets function better, businesses function better, consumers have more ability to participate in the market if people have this disposable income. And so that tends to work well on people where they think about it, but like capitalism where income doesn't start at zero, interesting. And then if they get technical, I say, look, socialism is when the country actually takes over the means of production, which is not what anyone's talking about here. And then at that point, it goes over their head, and they're just like, typically, because like no one actually looks up the definition of socialism in the dictionary. So I hope that's helpful. Capitalism where income does not start at zero.
So, Andrew?
Or like as Darnell says, it's like you get $200 for passing go. To say it's like Monopoly, but then and then you can look at them and say, is Monopoly socialist? That's a real thinker.
Andrew, over here. Hey, my name is Phyllis Coletta, and it's my intention to bring you the boomers. It's 55 to 75. So I'm curious. I'm sure you did the math. But when you made that decision to stack the freedom dividend on Social Security, can you A, tell me a little bit about your thinking, and I'm confident you did the numbers, and secondly, can you touch on Social Security, the third rail of politics in general?
Sure. Well, Phyllis, thank you, because we need the boomers in the biggest way, so thank you. You know the main way we've been getting boomers, aside from Phyllis, is their kids. I don't know if that happened to you, Phyllis. When we launched, we were emulating a plan that was originated by a guy named Andy Stern. And so he said 18 to 64, had the SEIU. And the thinking was that Social Security then kicks in at 65, and then you would need a separate plan for that population. And then over time, interacting with boomers and people realized that Social Security in a way was distinct from other programs, and that people had what they considered a forced annuity, where they put money away and then they were coming and getting it back. And so there was the math problem, which is like, hey, this is a lot more money. And so I sat down with the team and we looked at various ways you could counterbalance the increased expense of including boomers. And part of it was that morally I knew that including older Americans was the right thing to do, because I have no interest in living in a country where you have 70-year-olds, working in convenience stores to the day they die in order to try and survive. And we know that many Americans don't have meaningful retirement savings, and we're hitting a point demographically where it's going to be a massive crisis, really. So in terms of the ways to pay for it, a lot of that money, as with other Americans, ends up coming back from the economy. But we compiled a list of things that I'd already said we were going to do, like a carbon fee, which would raise tens of billions of dollars, like a tax on